these results.
It's already a crime in more than 15 U.S. states, and now the United Kingdom, the U.K., is also cracking down on what's known as revenge porn, sharing sexually explicit images without consent. Well, it carries a jail sentence of up to 2 years. We're joined now by privacy attorney and expert McKenna. Ann, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Kai.
How would you define revenge porn? Do we have a working title for it?
Sure. Revenge porn is when images are taken between usually two consenting adults, and then there's a breakup. And somehow those images find their way online. And typically it's the person who was broken up with and just wants revenge. So they post these images to websites, to various social media platforms. They might put them out on Twitter. And it's very, it's the victims have no recourse. But these laws are changing, and that's really important. They're giving victims a right to say, take that photo down. Just because I shared it with you doesn't mean I wanted it shared with the world.
From the perspective of the person victimized, how serious can that exposure be?
Incredibly serious. We have a lot of individuals who come into our firm that have just been, traumatized by this because it's, they equate it to like a virtual rape. And what that is, often these might be images of sex. They might be graphically, body parts, things like that.
Right.
And typically the victim may even be identified. Some of the websites even would go to the length to identify the victim and hook it up to their Facebook or LinkedIn accounts. So the victim had no control because this would just go viral.
On the part of the people who perhaps, let's say, purchase it, maybe it's a website that purchases this, what culpability, if any, do they have in exchanging money or putting this up on a site when they clearly perhaps don't have the consent of both parties involved, or however many parties might be involved?
Well, the way they were getting around it was that there was this concept, the third-party doctrine. If you share an image of yourself with someone else, the law typically held you didn't have a reasonable expectation of privacy to that image. And so you had no recourse, really. Because you gave it to one person, the law would treat it as if you said it can be shared with millions. But these revenge porn laws are changing that. And so now websites that knowingly put something up and knowingly refuse to take it down are facing culpability. We've seen some folks go to jail for that.
We talked about the UK. What laws do we have here in Maryland specifically?
Maryland very specifically has a revenge porn statute. It was passed with the work of many attorneys in this field who saw this happening. And the law met with a lot of opposition from First Amendment folks, and they said, hey, these people don't have a right to privacy in these pictures. But it's recognizing the right, and it's not just women that this happens to. It can happen to men as well.
Can people who are in the videos, let's say again the one unwittingly in the video, can they lose jobs, lose positions as a result of that, even though this was not their intention to be out in the public like that?
Most certainly, and that clearly happens. Somebody who, say, is a teacher, somebody who is in a sensitive public position, and they may have shared an intimate photo.
Can you sue the person who puts it out there?
Yes, because that person has invaded your privacy. The problem is the website that's posting this content from a third party would claim that they're immune from liability under the federal law.
I want to get to something here. Are we doing a disservice to victims? I look at this title, and I'm serious about it. I thought about this. We're calling this revenge porn. It's not pornography if two consenting adults are in a house doing something of their own volition. Might we call this, and I'm just throwing this out here, Ann, revenge sexual exploitation? Because to call it pornography makes it sound like the person who unwittingly is in this out in the public intended for it to be pornographic, which perhaps they did not.
Kai, that is a really great point and very insightful. And the reason that it is so hard is that these individuals feel shame. They feel like they've done something wrong because two consenting adults shared.
Sure.
And you're right, it is a form of exploitation as opposed to somebody doing something and creating something bad. Consenting adults can do this. It's perfectly lawful, and they're in their rights, but they didn't consent for it to be seen by millions.
Ann McKenna, always sage advice from you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Kai.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you on. Tackling the heroin epidemic in Maryland, a sobering look at just how bad that problem is.
And tax day is here, why you may not get any last-minute help from the IRS, and the restaurants offering some tax day discounts.